We'll leave it there. We'll just leave it there. We'll leave it there. Just hello.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys.
No, that's the end. Robbie, that's the end.
Like the Wayne's World bit when Wayne leaves and Garth has to do the show by
Yeah, and
himself.
he's just okay, well, that was... We'll just call that an intro and move on.
Yeah.
We are talking about what we are currently playing in the last installment of this newly minted series. I gushed over how fucking tremendous Street Fighter 6 is.
Did a great sales job.
Good. Capcom needs it. They're a plucky upstart. That's my favorite term of the day. So, Uncle Bob,
Yep.
what have you been playing? Go.
Okay, so my turn to convince you to play another little indie hit called Baldur's Gate 3.
We go for, here in Midlife Krisis, we only go for the deep cuts.
The deep cuts, yeah. Trying to show you games that you might not have heard of on your own, like Street Fighter 6.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a little game called Solitaire? It's pretty all right.
Okay. So, I am a huge fan of the Baldur's Gate series going back to 1999, 2000.
Right.
And the original Baldur's Gate game was, it was so impressive to me because if you remember the Halcyon days of the late 90s, this game came out, and when you bought it, it had 6 discs.
Oh,
it.
yes.
And it was, at the time, the only game I remember that had that, or it was one DVD, but nobody had DVD drives.
Yeah.
Again, this is 1998.
It was just starting to be in PCs, like having a DVD drive.
Yeah, exactly. So I remember whatever this game is, it comes on 6 discs. So I want that. Like, maybe I'll never finish it, but I want to know what this game is all about.
Hold on. Before we go further down this road, I have one question that I want to preface this with, and then I'm going to let you run. Did you get into D&D after you got into games like Baldur's Gate, or were you into D&D before? Because
what a question.
So my only experience with D&D, there's 2. Your Bachelor Party, which was a fucking hoot. We did a really, really, really long...
That was the best campaign of all time.
It was super fun. I had the time of my life. And then before that, because I am a dork, I had heard about D&D for like all of my existence, and I wanted to get into it. I've a friend of the show, Matt from Louisiana. He was like, "Oh, brother, no, D&D is it." And he kind of took me under his wings, and we together, and with another friend, did a campaign that was death metal themed.
Yeah.
Where like we designed, I was the DM, and we designed this whole dungeon around being at like a death metal show, and there's like you had to fight like the mosh pit and the whole deal. But we had a great time doing it. But I will be honest with you and say, like, for me, like, I have to be amongst like my closest friends, like you, that guy, like my closest friends, to be able to enjoy D&D. I can't imagine doing that with people that I don't know. Like, I would feel so awkward and weird, literally role playing with other people.
Okay, I have so much to say about this. Okay, so this will be the D&D episode, and then tune in next time for the Baldur's Gate
for part
episode.
4 and 5, Baldur's 3, right?
So look, first of all, I started playing D&D in 1994.
Okay.
And my mom and my then best friend's mom wanted us to get involved in high school, as we were going into high school at the time. And so it's like, you got to join clubs and stuff because we didn't do that, and we want you to. And so I saw that there was a club called the Adventurers Guild. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that sounds like it's for me.
I'm an adventurer and I need a guild.
And over the summer, leading into high school, my older brother, who I've talked about gloriously on here before, the Zelda conversation.
Yes.
Shout out again, Travis.
Shout out.
He described to me playing Warhammer. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what a tabletop role-playing game was. And then he told me about his experience playing Warhammer and the different characters. And I was like, what in the hell is this? This is crazy. So then I started thinking about Dungeons & Dragons or hearing more about it.
Yeah.
Remember, this is 1994. It's pre-internet.
Yes.
So you don't just hear something and then Google it. Like, you have to be exposed to it.
You could be rocking and rolling on CompuServe.
Yeah.
You could be doing that. And I'll say that real quick. I want to say
Commodore 64.
Yes. Yeah. Dialing up on your tape drive. I want to say this about Warhammer. Warhammer is something that I have appreciated from very far, for many years. I've never even tried it, but I have all the time in the world to look at and appreciate miniature painting and the landscape stuff. To me, it's just what a cool fucking hobby that is.
I may or may not have made like 6 or 7 investments into various Kickstarters that involve just getting cool minis, which I have, and I don't have enough time to play tabletop games or to have them painted or anything.
Yeah.
So I just have like a closet full of amazing
It's like
little minis.
it's just naked pewter statues that that are colorless and lifeless,
But beautiful.
but
That's
beautiful. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, I joined the Adventurers Guild, and they're all playing Dungeons and Dragons. But this is a really interesting time. In the 70s and 80s, Dungeons and Dragons was really, really huge. Then there was the moral panic.
Yes.
Then it was scorned by parents, but this is after all that.
Well, it's satanic, Robbie.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
But then also it became the nerd divide between cool and nerd was like at its peak here.
Oh, yeah.
So only nerds
You're getting
played-
your ass beat if you're playing D&D.
So
and
only
admitting to
nerds
it.
played D&D.
Yes.
It meant you were uncool. And I was playing D&D, and it was very uncool this time in my life.
Yeah.
Now it's amazing. My 11-year-old daughter is in a D&D group that she plays once a week with her Girl Scout troop.
That's crazy. That's so cool.
They play D&D together.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, great. So, and thank you to the volunteering dad for helping them out in
Right.
D&D. So anyway, and obviously I'm sort of predisposed to being into this.
Yes.
And I was super, super into it. But the thing with D&D is it's really hard to get a good group together and to stay together and to be committed together. And at the end of that 1 year of high school, all of those Adventurers Guild guys graduated. And then there was no Adventurers Guild the next year because
They took the keys of the castle.
it would have
literally,
just been me.
What's a one-man guild? What is that called?
So guys, this week we're going to continue our adventure.
I've got more charisma. Roll again. You could get dates that way, though. Hey, babe.
Yeah.
I rolled a 12 on Kaz, bro.
All right. So not being able to play D&D for a couple of years, Baldur's Gate comes out, and now D&D on a computer.
Yes.
And it has the system. And
Designed for a single player.
Totally. Well, so right in my wheelhouse. And I told this story at some point. I will tell it again now because it's fucking great. My first exposure to Baldur's Gate before I actually bought the game was a friend of ours. I was living with a friend of the show, Pierre, and another friend of ours named Tyler. Tyler had moved down. He left his parents, and he didn't have a room to stay in. It was just the classic thing you do when you're 18. It's like somebody needs a place to stay. You're like, oh, we got a living room.
Yeah, you got a couch. No.
Yeah, no couch. You just slept on the floor. Boy, look at Daddy Warbucks over here. It's like, oh, your friend's got couches.
La-di-da, you got a couch. Cool.
Not only did he sleep on the floor, but his computer was just on the floor. So the tower was on the floor. His monitor, 15-inch CRT, was on the floor. And this is also 1999. So he oh man, can't wait to tell us. He acquired a smoking habit.
Okay.
Tyler, I hope you're watching this episode. He said that he wanted to take up smoking just to then quit smoking and to show that anyone who is addicted to smoking could stop if they just had the willpower to do so. Then he got addicted to smoking and never stopped.
Holy shit. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I've heard a lot of dumb shit. Well, it could be dumber. It could have been heroin. He could have been like, yeah. You know what? All these pussies who give their lives up to heroin, I'll show them. And then
Show them. Hey, Tyler, we need you to move out.
what I need is your money, bro.
So he starts playing Baldur's Gate, and there's like an early dungeon in the game. And one day I just kind of like wandered over to him. And then we sit down crisscross applesauce on the living room floor, and he is just exhaling plumes of smoke.
Well, you're used to that.
right in my face. I was, yes. It instantly brought me back to my childhood.
Right.
Driving around with my mom and my grandma.
No
or
marble
anybody
miles
else
from
in
this
my
guy,
life.
though.
No marble.
So real
He
downside.
did not have the duffel bag or the jacket.
Yeah.
That's true. And he was playing Baldur's Gate, and through the clouds of smoke, looking at that 15-inch CRT, I was like, man, this looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I saw he had the 6 CDs. I was like, man, I really need to go buy this. I worked at Best Buy at the time, so immediately went out and bought it, installed it on my computer, and had a spectacular time with it. Then I played the expansion, which is called Tales of the Sword Coast. Was super cool about that was that I think it was Tales of the Sword Coast. you could kill Demogorgon in it. The end boss that was made such a big deal in the Stranger Things series.
Yeah.
That's an enemy that you can kill. I believe it's in the expansion to the original Baldur's Gate.
Is that a Lovecraft thing? Is that where that comes from?
Demogorgon. They did have Lovecraftian inspirations.
Uh-huh.
But the Demogorgon, the creature, it's weird. It has 2 monkey heads.
And Gorgon,
but then,
so snakes, right?
Yeah, and then tentacle arms,
Mm-hmm.
and then like a baboon's body. So it doesn't sound. It sounds farcical in your head.
Yeah.
But it's like it was the original big bad of Dungeons and Dragons. In fact, it was on the cover of the original monster manual.
Okay, yeah.
For Dungeons and Dragons.
I know that. I know the exact picture you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to be able to defeat that, and you don't have to defeat it, you can actually converse with it. But I was like, I'm at the end of this game. I want to beat it, and I was able to do that. So it was like super, super fun. Then I played Baldur's Gate 2. Incredibly, it's even better than Baldur's Gate 1. The voice acting is better. They cleaned up a lot.
What year is Baldur's Gate 2?
I'm going to say 2000.
Okay.
And if I remember correctly, it came out within 30 days of Diablo 2 coming out. And it was buried a little bit under Diablo 2.
The weight of that, yeah.
Everybody played Diablo 2. I was playing Baldur's Gate 2. And then the expansion for Baldur's Gate 2 is great. You kill a bunch of dragons in that one. So it was like a perfect series.
Right.
And we've talked about BioWare before, and BioWare's flying really high at this time. And I was just like, man, whatever these guys are doing is great. When's that next Baldur's Gate coming out? And come to find out, they're not doing another Baldur's Gate game. They did something called Neverwinter Nights.
Yeah, Icewind Dale, all that crap.
They did. They published Icewind Dale. They did. They started working on the Mass Effect games, and then when they did get back around to high fantasy, they decided to call their game Dragon Age.
Yeah.
Dragon Age.
And so when Dragon Age comes out, are the doctors still there, or had they left by that point?
The first Dragon Age, I believe they were still around for, and then they left.
And for Inquisition, they weren't there.
Shortly after that.
Dragon Age,
I think they were gone by then.
Okay, got it. They sold out and got their fucking never work again money.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that company has been floundering ever since. And
yeah.
newsflash, as of the time of recording, they just laid off 50 people last week.
Oh wow, okay,
So,
that's news to me.
yeah. So they are
things aren't doing good at
they are
BioWare.
struggling and have been struggling.
Man, that's crazy. Like going from Mass Effect to that.
There's just
Nuts.
it's like the way that like when we talk about like things you loved as a child, and then you get older, and then like all these executives in suits like just kill them and then make stupid decisions and just
Unless you're Capcom.
crush your childhood.
Great job, Capcom executives.
Yeah, nice. They're the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah.
That's kind of like what I am with gaming developers like Blizzard and BioWare, and Valve's been better lately, but a little bit them too. It's like all these fond memories of these like sort of pristine developers in my childhood, and they all suck now.
Well, you picked winners. I mean, there were winners at the time that you loved them, but then as history panned out, like every one of these ones that you beloved have not gone. They're not Nintendo. Is my point.
Yeah, so weird. I attached my star to the wrong, hitched my wagon to the wrong stars.
I told you.
Why was I cheering for Kurt Schilling as a kid?
Look, I told you. I said get on the Strata train because Time Killers is it, and you need to stay with us. And you would have made the right choice.
Okay, so after Baldur's Gate 2, we're talking about like 2001 now. Okay, 22 freaking years ago. I'm thinking, boy, I cannot wait for the next Baldur's Gate game. And what I did not know is that wait would be 20 friggin' years.
It just dawned on me that is 100% true.
Yeah.
That game literally took 20 years to come out.
And might not have come out, but for the fact that this developer, Larian Studios, not BioWare, made a game called Divinity.
That's theirs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, which was a huge hit and kind of a throwback in style to the old
Baldur's
games.
Gate, right?
And that was happening at the time. There were 2 other games that sort of promised to be an homage to these beloved role-playing games. One was called Tides of Numenera, huge Kickstarter. Game came out, it was just okay, 7 out of 10. The other one, I forgot the developer's name, but the game that they pitched was Pillars of Eternity. And I played a good chunk of Pillars of Eternity. It delivers.
I checked out Pillars of Eternity. I didn't finish it or anything, but it was on Game Pass, I believe. And I think on a whim, I downloaded it, checked it out. It's not a bad game at all.
Yeah, it delivered on the promise. However, a game that was not Kickstarter at all, which was the original Divinity by Larian, that delivered better than either of those other 2 games. And it was like Divinity was a huge hit. Then they do a sequel, Divinity 2, and that's an even bigger hit. As the story goes, based on that second hit, now Wizards of the Coast, the now owners of the D&D brand.
When did they buy D&D?
2000, I'm going to say.
Okay, so they've had it for a long time.
a long time. And
Yeah.
by the way, they basically bought it for, I think it was like maybe $1, and they just assumed all the debt because they were TSR,
Yeah.
which was the original owners of the D&D brand. They were about to go bankrupt.
I
because
remember that.
Gary Gygax, great guy at developing games, bad guy at running business, much like Kurt Schilling playing baseball.
Yeah.
Turns out that people just need to stay in their lanes.
Yeah.
So he sold the business to Wizards of the Coast for just please take all my debt.
Yeah,
so I
literally
don't
a
declare
song. Right?
bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And then Wizards of the Coast just fixed it basically overnight. They did 3rd edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and then a 4th, and now a 5th edition. And Dungeons and Dragons is having a moment, and now it's a mainstream thing.
I mean, Stranger Things, right? Like
Stranger Things was a big one.
Yeah. So I haven't watched any Stranger Things at all, but I'm familiar with it because how can you not be? But I know that Dungeons and Dragons is like a major deal about
they're playing D&D in the first scene of the first episode.
Okay, yeah. So yeah,
there's a lot of D&D references and in fact the bad guy that they call it a Demogorgon, and it's D&D. And in this most recent season of Stranger Things, one of the prime characters is the dungeon master of the group of kids. So it's huge, and they couldn't have picked a better company to buy it because Wizards of the Coast was making Magic the Gathering,
it's their
which
deal.
was just D&D the card game,
right? Yeah.
So it was a
hand in glove fit.
Yeah. Okay. So now Larian comes along and they decide, okay, we're good enough, or Wizards of the Coast decides it's good enough to get the responsibility of making a D&D game, and they come out with Baldur's Gate 3. Now, Baldur's Gate 3 entered early access. You could play the first act of the game like 2 years ago. It came out, I think, in August of the COVID year, 2020.
So I want to say that I'm going to jump in real quick, and so my frame of reference is this. I remember it was a big deal that they were doing early access, but I remember at the time, it being kind of shit on, and I remember specifically like the talk of it was that it's Baldur's Gate in name only. It was kind of the general talk about that game I heard at the time.
So I love it when you surprise me with your knowledge of the topics I expect you to have no knowledge of. That is exactly correct.
Okay.
It was largely dumped on when it came out in early access because it was really buggy and it was incomplete and it was early access. And I saw all those reviews in the beginning. I considered buying it because Baldur's Gate.
Right.
But I didn't. I held off. And it has nothing to do, almost nothing to do with the original Baldur's Gate series. Apparently, even now as I'm playing it, I haven't finished it, and I haven't gone to the part where you're supposed to. You may or may not meet up with characters from the original game series.
Okay.
But the story absolutely has nothing to do with the original game series, and I can't even tell if the story takes place contemporaneously with that series, 100 years before or after that series. I don't know. It just everything seems different right now.
Right.
And so it was criticized for that, and it was also criticized for the actual gameplay itself. So it turns out a lot can be done in 2 years of game development because the game comes out and it's now lighting the world on fire.
This game's getting like solid 10s, like from every outlet.
The Metacritic of it, I believe, is a 95, maybe something like that. It's really, really high.
It's for me, and I've told you this off air, but like I feel like this is a game that I need to check out because of how many people whose tastes I respect have said like, no, this is it. Like this is a really, really good game.
And everybody assumed Zelda was going to be the game of the year, and now everybody's like, I don't know, Baldur's Gate going to give it a run for its money, so nobody really knows. And okay, so now 15 minutes into this show, I'm ready to give you my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
All of those reviews are absolutely justified. The game is freaking fantastic. It is a wonderful both homage to the original Baldur's Gate in gameplay mechanics and story and the way the D&D system and how it's utilized, as well as sort of a forward-thinking game that utilizes the technological changes that have taken place in the last 20 years and sort of advances the genre forward in a way that people like me have been waiting for a really, really long time.
Well, I think that's from what I understand, this is the magical sweet sauce recipe of this game, is that all the while it is doing those things, advancing the genre and being like kind of like on the forefront of a game like this and where it should be. For as much as it's doing that, it's also like paying tribute to everything that made Baldur's Gate a special thing in the first place.
It is amazing how they did that because
it's impossible.
Yeah,
that's an impossible thing to do.
I would have told you it was impossible as well. This is like, thank God we didn't do this a year ago, and it'd be part of our What We Got Wrong series.
Yeah, for sure.
I would have been like, this game's gonna suck. because they can't do this.
Yeah.
And they absolutely, I cannot believe that they did it, but they totally did it. It's a 3D game, but it feels like you're playing a 2D game at times. The combat feels just like Baldur's Gate. The story is really good. The story is really enriching. You cannot believe how much breadth and depth that there is to the game. My biggest frustration while playing it is that I feel like there's no way you can get even half the content after a full playthrough.
Right.
You can play through the entire game with one character and miss half the content because you have to make certain decisions, or you don't have dialogue options.
See,
that
this
are
is
open
where
to you.
this is where CRPGs, as they're now being called, I've known them as Western RPGs for my entire life, but I digress. CRPGs, that's where they lose me, because like I'm not a completionist like you, but I do get bothered when, like, if I'm investing a lot of hours into a game, like I expect to get the full breadth of that game.
Yeah.
And so like I'm a big Fire Emblem fan. For Three Houses, the way you totally fully beat that game is you have to play. There's 3 houses, and you have to beat the game with all 3 of them. And each playthrough is like 50 hours. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just not going to do it. And like, it sucks, and that is an on me type of a thing. Like for me, like this is not a problem to most people. Most people are ecstatic to have hundreds of hours of content.
Yeah.
But for me, I play a lot of video games, and like I don't like stay in one specific genre or one specific console. So for me, like I need to spread my time out evenly across all the things that I like, and very, very rarely can I find myself being like just super committed to one game at a time.
I actually wholly agree with you here, surprisingly. Because as I'm playing the game, it's like if this game is 100+ hours, I'm not going to play this 2 times.
There's no way.
Just no way.
Yeah.
That's insane, even for me, a completionist. So then, as you're playing the game, you do experience some fear of missing out, and there are times it actually negatively impacts my experience, because if you're having a dialogue, you're trying to immerse yourself in the game, and part of the role playing experience is I'm going to make whatever choices that I make, and if people die or they,
yes,
but then
that's how you do it.
That's how they want you to do it. Except that sometimes I'll make a choice, and it's like, well, wait, when I chose this dialogue option, you reacted to it in a way I wasn't expecting, and now this character over here is dead, and I'm not sure if I signed up for that.
Right.
So now let me reload everything and then do it again to fix the mistake that I made.
Right.
And you can do that, and this is especially true with like the romance options. It's like, look, I need to say to you whatever it will take to get you naked.
Right.
And if I have to reload this game 6 times to make sure that I choose
None of this sounds sad, by the way, but continue.
Just looking for some companionship.
Well, you are married after all.
Fair enough. So anyway, so sometimes you have to, just to experience the full breadth of the content, you got to reload the game.
Yeah.
And that sucks. But the game is so deep and has so much content there that, you know, sometimes I do it. Most of the time I try not to do it. And I've made decisions. I'll just say one little thing from the game. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, but there's a character that you come across that's petrified, and then you can have oil, basilisk oil, and you can give the oil to the character to unpetrify them. And then so it's like, oh, I'm a good guy. I'm a good character. I'll do that.
Right.
And then you unpetrify the character, and then they immediately tell you, no, the petrification was on me for a reason. Is because I have this deadly poison in me flowing through me, and I was petrified until they can find a cure for the poison.
You fucked me, basically.
And then he just falls over and dies right in front of you. It's
you don't need to tell me anymore about this game. I'm sold. You just sold me this game on that. The notion and spiritedness of that is fantastic.
well, okay, so if that doesn't sell you, maybe this bit will. And I'm actually surprised that like some conservative groups haven't come out and made statements about this, but when they were selling the game, they're like, yeah, you have a whole bunch of different romance options, and we don't care. Like, there's alien species, and you can, make it with the aliens or whatever. But also there's this. And then they showed a video of a druid, metamorphosizing into a bear.
What?
and like rolling over on apparently his back, and then getting mounted by a human character, or maybe the bear did the mounting. Anyway, there's a bestiality scene in this game.
What? Wasn't expecting that.
Not only is it there, they like marketed the game as like, when you play, this is part of what you're buying, guy.
Well, this is a feature we put on the box.
and they're like planting their flag on it too. Like, come at us.
I will say that, like, so we talked about Fable 2, I think, on one of these shows, and how much I loved that game. That's a big thing in Fable 2 as well, there's a point, and I'll get back to Baldur's Gate in a second here, but I went out of my way to romance, like it was 2 separate women and then 2 separate men, and I had them all in houses next to each other. And then, like, I would go
Warren Jeffs.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. But it's yeah, I built my compound so that people could keep sweet and do what I tell them. But so I do that. I do that, and it was all about like organizing them finding out. And so they find out about these multiple pansexual affairs that I'm having in Fable 2, and they go out and they fucking kill each other, and I watch it happen. And it was just like, I can't believe I'm doing this in a video game. It was really, really fun.
Highest levels of immersion.
Yeah.
So I have not had any bestiality options yet, and the character I'm playing is a sorcerer. Yeah, is a sorcerer, not a druid. So still working on that.
Right.
But that may be the reason I do a second playthrough is to
just to see
experience all the content.
I gotta see all the
content.
dirty, mischievous things that are going on in this game.
So anyway, so if the if the horrible death of the petrified dude doesn't get you, then you should play the game just to get a look at that.
To get weird, to get extra levels of weird. No, it's a selling point. It's hard to argue that.
All right, so like I said, Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing. Mm-hmm. I'm actually, to give you an idea, I'm 50 hours into the game, and I'm at the end of Act 1.
Oh boy.
So.
Oh boy. See, that gets me nervous.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about Starfield off air. Starfield, as we were recording right now, Starfield is mere days away, and a lot of the early reviews actually are saying like it's a slog. Like those first 10 to 15 hours is you gotta work if you want to see what this game can offer. And I don't, if I'm 20, 21, like I could do that. But as a guy who like, I probably have more free time than a lot of other people, but I don't have infinite free time. Like something like that really is not super appealing sounding to me.
It's rough. Well, and I just got done putting 60 hours into Peakman, which we spoke of glowingly on the show.
Yeah.
So going from Peakman to Baldur's Gate 3, it's like there's like 6 games in between that I could have played and would have liked them. I'd like to finish Dave the Diver for crying out loud.
Right.
But
by the way, friend of the show and friend in life, Danny, is playing Dave the Diver, and he can't stop talking about how great it is.
It's really good. Play that game too, everyone.
Very good.
So
let me ask you this before your next point. What are you playing the game on? Because I've heard that it's actually really, really good on Steam Deck, and people are playing it there. But what are your thoughts on that?
That's good to hear. I could play it on my Steam Deck if I wanted to, but I'm not leaving the house much these days.
Yeah. So why would you?
No, I've got a 48-inch monitor and a 4090 video card.
You have a fucking computer that is like most people spend that amount of money on a car, and you have it as a computer. So yeah, you're doing all right in terms of that.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
it's pretty all right. Cool.
Yeah.
It's nice to go to the options menu and just put everything at max and just be like, we're and playing it in 4K with HDR and all that. It's great. This is what I want to do with my life.
Yeah. And you're not wrong for it. And you're definitely not wrong for it.
So everyone go out and get a 4090 and a really and a 48-inch monitor.
Sell an arm or a leg. It doesn't matter. Just get there.
Yeah, and then play this game because this game is great. Is there anything else I want to? So the combat. Okay, so I'll just make a couple specific points about the gameplay. A really freaking fun thing that this game does really well is that the combat's pretty epic.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the D&D experience is when you complete a combat, you loot the bodies and you get treasure. And every time I finish a major combat, I am as excited about the treasure I'm about to get as I am about just finishing the combat. The combat is also, it can be very varied, where it's like on different levels, and you can use a whole bunch of different, you can throw fireballs, or you could hack and slash, or you'll get items like smoke or grenades that you can throw. But man, you kill the character, and you want to advance the story too. And then you just to just get the loot. It's like, oh, there's a rare necklace that has magical properties. That's really cool. The game also does a really good job of allowing you, if you have different skill sets, to just talk your way out of combat sometimes. So sometimes some character will walk up to you and be like, these little gnomes over here, you've got to beat them to get them to work harder to get to this next area.
Like Golden Axe.
And you can be like, yeah, let's beat these gnomes to get them to open the door so we can get to the next part. Mm-hmm. Or you can be like the white hat and be like, how dare you talk about the gnomes this way, dear sir? And then you start a duel or whatever.
We'll fight them with our words.
Yeah. So it's like you can be a good guy, But sometimes you could try to be the good guy and end up doing the wrong thing, hence the petrification incident.
Right.
You can be the bad guy if you want and just like kick a gnome into lava if you feel like it, to just be like, get out of my way. I'm going through this door now. You can attack almost any character, even friendly characters, and kill them and then loot them. It's like almost everything that you could do in actual Dungeons and Dragons you can do in this game. And the combination of the quality of the story, which is very good, and the vastness of it. I mean, it's a vast game. And then just the pacing of it, and then the combat experiences, and then the progression. When you're level 1, you really suck, man. When you're like a wizard, you have one spell that you can cast per rest period. But as every level, you feel stronger and stronger. And I'm at level 6 right now. I think I think the game maxes out at 10 maybe. So I'm at level 6 right now, and it's like, and I'm going into combat now with a little bit of a swagger, and it's like I got a fireball for you, guy. I've got a lightning storm. I can hold you in place or like hypnotize you. Like,
yeah.
So
you're like Kid Rock. No one's gonna tell you how to live.
That's not what I'm thinking of. When I'm
Fair enough.
So the progression of it feels really, really good. So anyway, all the hype is deserved. The game has been a wonderful experience. I cannot believe the best part of it is that it feels wholly within the Baldur's Gate universe and the D&D universe. The developers apparently said that they just put everything into this game. Oh, this is another part. This has to be mentioned. We have spoken on this episode before about games coming out that are really buggy and then they have to be patched to infinite to get to work, or games being incomplete and then they have DLC in development that they're holding on to. This game is none of that. There are complaints that the third act has bugs in it that are being worked on right now, but the first act, which was the early access act, that is relatively bug-free, relatively. And that combined with the fact that there's no DLC, they don't have anything in the hopper right now. It's like, here you go, here's everything. And they've said, we don't know if we're going to do DLC. We don't know if we're going to do an expansion. We don't know if we're going to do a sequel. We put everything we had into this, so enjoy it. Everybody is kind of praising the developer for that because they're not trying to just string out the
purposely
release
holding things back.
For
the whole deal.
Yeah. And so the developer actually is like, they're really, really respected now in the game.
It's really smart to do that because no one else is doing it. And if you're going to be a game, especially as big as Baldur's Gate 3 and getting the hype that you're getting, and then make that as a business choice, like to me, it's genius.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then getting credibility with gamers is so difficult because we're such cynical schmucks.
Yeah. We're absolute trash. Like just pieces
we're
of
the
shit.
worst.
We go around and we review bomb things and all kinds of fucking gross shit.
Can't wait to do that episode.
Yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
So anyway, so the game is great. The developer is great. Thank you, Larian, for giving me another taste of my youth.
Yeah.
Anytime I could go back in time, I appreciate it. That's why this is Midlife Krisis. And that game is spectacular. And also, I'm not even at the end of Act 1, so I cannot wait to finish the rest of it. And we'll probably have to do another, what we're still playing, a couple episodes from now.
9 months from now.
Yeah, I can talk about the rest of the game.
So far, safe to say, this is so far your game of the year?
It feels like I'm being disrespectful to Peakman by saying that, but if I'm picking a game right now, I think no disrespect to Peakman, but I am picking Baldur's Gate right now.
All right. I mean, that's some serious shit. That's some serious gauntlet dropping you're doing.
Let me just qualify that a little bit though by saying that, like, much like when we did the Zelda episode, this game was my DNA is like, it just yearns for games like this. So there is and
you've been literally waiting for years and years and years
decades
to do it. Yeah.
There is a predisposed bias that I have to like a game like this.
Hey man, I love Shenmue 3. I get it.
There's also a degree of scrutiny though. It's like, hey man, you're making a Baldur's Gate game. Okay, well, here's what I'm expecting, and you better bring the horses.
Yeah.
And they did, and they just did. So
they did for Shenmue 3 as well. That. So I know this wonderful feeling you're experiencing.
Totally,
it's euphoric.
Yeah. So yeah, for now, it's game of the year. We still got 4 months to go though, so we'll see how the year.
Do you think that is there anything coming out for the rest of the year that could even come close to you?
Well, as we record this, the early reviews for Starfield are in, and it's getting like 7s and 8s mostly. So it doesn't seem like that's going to be it.
Right. I don't think it ever was going to be that, but
the Spider-Man sequel, you know, like you don't know what that's going to be, but they've got high hopes for that. So there's that, and then Mario Wonder, like that could still be.
Yeah, it's for me, and this is. Yeah, come on. I mean, you're talking to me.
Right.
Like,
so maybe that's going to be your game of the year.
It could be.
So.
Like, I mean, I'm with you. Like, Pikmin 4 has just been wonderful. Once I finished Street Fighter 6, I could go dive full head first into Pikmin 4 as I've done. and it's just so good. It's such a relaxing, good, well-made,
Yeah.
just a glorious way to spend your time.
It's just, this is such a great year.
It's been a good one.
We're done with COVID. Like all these games that we were hearing about during COVID are coming out now. That games that had been delayed, like the Zelda game was delayed, and so now they're all coming out at the same time. There's too many of them for me. I'm doing the best I can, everyone. But the ones that I've played, Baldur's Gate 3 right now is my game of the year. But I will put a pause on that to see how Mario Wonder is, how Spider-Man is, how Starfield is, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I'm with you there 100%. Well, I am, and I've told you this off air, like I do want to give this game a shot. I'm waiting for the Mac version because of all the computers that I own, the Mac that I have is the most capable machine that I have. So, which is kind of funny that I'm waiting for this like high-end PC game to come out on a Mac, but it is coming out on a Mac, so I'll check it out there. But yeah, it's as an etic observer of this kind of stuff. To me, it's so hard not to get jazzed for you, like when something like this comes along. So even though it might not be fully my cup of tea, it's hard not to appreciate the amount of hype. And above anything else, like, look. Life has been hard for a lot of people for way too fucking long now. So when something that comes out that like is getting universal praise and bringing genuine joy to like a huge amount of people's lives, like more of that, please. Let's just work on doing more of that.
Yeah, when Shenmue 3 came out, that was at the exact moment that the Blizzard sexual harassment allegations were coming out. And you and I had a conversation that was not so fun for me.
Right.
Where I was like, hey, my game developer of choice is crashing and burning. How you doing? And you're like, Shenmue 3?
Cloud. Robbie, they made a really boring game that only I like. And they made it super boring. I love it.
So this is now the contra to that.
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah.
So,
you get to ride on this roller coaster now too.
And I'm riding it all the way.
Very good. All right, well that's gonna do it. We will obviously return to this subject so that we can talk about what we are playing,
or other games,
or what have you. Games that we want to play, maybe. Who knows?
We'll do a whole episode where I just talk about not playing Tears of the Kingdom.
I really want to play that Zelda game, but I just got like a fucking family of 13 kids and a career and all this other shit. You'll get time for it. Hey, it's just play. You already played Breath of the Wild. You're done. You're good.
Somebody kill me.
All right. So until the sweet release of Uncle Bob's death, we'll say goodbye. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, tell a friend, all the good things, and tune on in for the next one. Let's touch fingers. This will make people definitely want to watch our show.
God.
Definitely want to watch it.
Yeah.